So we're in, the very early beginning of that whole COVID shutdown, the first shutdown thing. And I think it was April 1st or 2nd. I think it was the first. And I had worked out and remember I was like, my back is it's tight. You know what I mean? Like it's just tight. It wasn't comfortable. And I thought, maybe I'm having some back spasms. I've never had a back spasm before. I don't know what a back spasm is. But I was thinking, okay, maybe I'm having back spasms. I remember I had a friend in university that had back spasms. It looked really bad. It looked super painful. And I thought, okay, maybe that's what's going on. I remember I rolled my back out. It felt a little better. And it was a Wednesday. I remember it being a Wednesday. And I remember I said to my wife, fiance then, and I was like, yeah, it's just not comfortable, but I'll be okay. And that night I didn't sleep real well. And the next day, whew, oh goodness, it was something else. I mean, when I say something else, it was pain on a level I hadn't felt before. I've torn hamstrings, I've broken fingers, dislocated shoulders. I've done some stuff over the years, right? And it was just way up there, like just so far up there. I was amazed. I was just amazed how much it hurt so much. And I was like, okay, well, obviously, it's back spasm. I waited all day. Got through that day. The next day, I was like, I gotta go to the doctor. This is bad. This is not normal. And I went to emergency. And we're in COVID. They're asking a million questions. And I can't breathe real well because my back is so tight. My abs are just flexed as hard as they can. I'm breathe like this and try to talk. And that is the way I was talking. I could talk a little bit like this. I could hardly even walk. And I drove myself to emergency, and I went to emergency, and the doctor takes a look at me, and he's like, I think you have back spasms. And I was like, okay, well, that's what I thought too. So he gives me an injection, a Toradol injection in my back, and those suckers sting. But, 15 minutes later, I was like a new man. I was like, oh, great, okay. And he said, look, this is just going to go away. It'll be fine. You're good. Your goals, don't stress, dude. Just, go home. So I went home, felt great. He gave me a prescription for this like a strong a really strong anti-inflammatory. And I was driving home. I'm like, yeah, I don't really want to do it right now. I'm going to go home. And the next day I got up and wow, back into it. The pain was worse than before. But I said, okay, well, I have to go get this damn thing. So I went to Costco and I had to wait for, I don't know, half an hour. And I'm just dying pain. Dying, incredible, couldn't believe it pain. I came home and I was so bad. It was so bad. I remember I came up, I went to the apartment and I called my son out, my daughter, my kids out, and I was like, hey, you gotta do something. And my wife was like, what is happening? And I was shaking, just shaking. I was so sore. I was sweating, and finally I said, you have to call the paramedics. There's something seriously wrong. This is a Saturday. I think it was. Anyway, the paramedics show up. I can't even walk. Can't walk, can't do anything. They put me on in an ambulance, and they give me fentanyl. Give me half a dose of fentanyl on the way to the hospital, and it takes the pain. Remember, she said in the back, the paramedic said to me, where are you for pain? What's your pain level out of 10? I said 14. And she gave me a look that I remember in my mind thinking, okay, she's thinking I'm full of shit, but it was a 14. I never felt pain, broken hands, dislocated shoulders, torn hamstrings, never. Nothing was close to this, not even in the ballpark. And so they gave me half a shot of it, and it took the pain down to like an 8. It took me the other half, and it got me down to about a 4. I could walk, which, was a step in the right direction. And I went in, and I'm in the COVID unit. They're all gowned up, and they do a bunch of blood work for me and stuff. And then they send me home, and they say, listen, you have pneumonia. I did an X-ray, and they were like, you have pneumonia, and I was like, okay. And they're like, look, you have COVID, and I was like, oh goodness, I can't believe I haven't been doing anything. I've been home, and I was all worried and stressed out over that. And they sent me. I remember I said to the doctor before I left, like, what's the likelihood I don't have COVID? They did the COVID test, they jam it in your nose, and he said 95% you have COVID. And I'm like, okay. I went home and I couldn't believe it. I was so frustrated. I was like, wow, this is like serious shit. This is serious stuff. I mean, I'd heard about COVID. I've read a lot about COVID. It was early, right? It was super. We weren't even wearing masks back then. And so I went home, and my wife was like, oh my God, I can't believe we all have, COVID now. And I was mad. That's the best way to put it. I was really mad that I had it. I couldn't understand where I could have gotten it. I was like, I go to the grocery store and I go home. I haven't done anything. And the next day, the pain level comes back, of course, and I don't sleep, and I'm on the antibiotics. And over the course of a couple of days, it gets a little bit better, but not really. I mean, it's just, I'm pretty much just used to the pain. And, it was a Saturday. By Friday, again, it was just, I can't even explain it. It was crazy. And I went to emergency again. I drove myself this time. I said, I'm not paying for an ambulance this time. I'm going to drive myself. Damn it. So I drive myself to the hospital. They put me in the COVID unit, and I'm in the COVID unit, and it is me, 2 nurses, and a doctor for 12 hours. And there's nobody that comes in. Nobody. They do, CT scans, they do X-rays, they do all this stuff, and they're like, we don't know what's wrong with you. You shouldn't be in pain. They do another COVID test. I mean, and in the interim, the next day I had gotten a call back after the COVID test, and they said, you're negative. And I was like, okay, cool. But when I was back in the COVID unit the next Friday, they're saying to me, well, you probably have COVID. And I'm like, I don't have any symptoms. I'm not, it's not here. It's not my, I don't feel like I have those COVID symptoms, the headache and all that stuff. It's my back. It is killing me. I can't walk. I can't stand up. I can't. And they said, well, you can't breathe very well. And I'm like, well, I can't breathe because my abs are so flexed. I can't straighten up. So finally they say, listen, you need to go from Cobequid, which is a small emergency. You have to go to the big emergency, right? You have to go to the real emergency. So I said, okay. And I drove there because they said, we'll send you an ambulance. I'm like, no. I brought the Jeep. I'm driving. I'm stubborn like that. And I drove, and I got there, and it was night. A lot of stuff was happening. I had some family things that were happening at the same time. I have a family member that has some addiction problems. They're in the throes of that addiction. My ex-wife is like not helping. I'm out, peace, and I'm on the phone with her saying, I'm in the hospital right now. You have to let me, you got to do your part right now. I'm in the hospital. I can't help. Like, let me finish here. I'll get out of the hospital and we can do this. And she's like, no, I'm not. I'm done. And so, the stress level is through the roof. I'm talking to my brother on the phone and my wife on the phone. And, I am stressed. And I can hardly, I really, and when I say I hardly breathe, I really can hardly breathe. I'm not kidding. I can hardly breathe. Like that. Feel like you're drowning all the time. The only way I could breathe is if I leaned like on my elbows like this and stood up. But I was so exhausted because I hadn't slept in days and days, really. It just was so bad. And then finally this doctor comes in and he says, we're going to keep you overnight. And in my mind, I was like, I got to go home though. I have a family emergency. I have to go home. When can I get out of here? And he said, Mr. Sherrington, you're not going anywhere. And I remember the look on his face, and God bless him. I'm not a religious guy, but God bless this guy. Because he said to me, Mr. Sherrington, you can't go anywhere. If you go home, you'll die. And I said, what? Or I said, what? Because I couldn't really breathe. And he said, listen, did anyone talk to you? You have a very serious blood infection. I said, no, nobody said anything about a blood infection. They tested me for COVID. He said, well, you don't have COVID. You don't have any of the symptoms for COVID. You've been tested twice. You don't have COVID. You have a very serious staph infection. He said, are you a drug user? And I said, no, I'm not. I don't even drink. And he said, well, you have a blood infection, and if we send you home, you will die. You'll be dead in 36 hours if we send you home. If we send you home now and you wait till tomorrow to come back, you may not survive then either. So you are not leaving this hospital. You're staying right here. I called my wife and I said, I have this blood infection. And at the time, she had I had never been sick, like really sick at all in the time we've been together. And she was understandably frustrated. We're home, we have 4 kids, it's COVID, a lot of stress, both our businesses are closed, like I can't do anything. And I think in her mind, she was like, okay, is this guy just has a man cold, right? Because I'd never been sick while I was with her. In 3 years, I hadn't been sick. I was good. And she said, you what? And I said, I have a blood infection, and they say if I go home, I'm going to die. And I remember she started crying on the phone because she just felt so bad because she, I think, had thought I was making it up, which made me feel bad. I felt terrible because I thought, golly, like it's not her fault, right? She didn't do anything wrong. And they took me upstairs and they loaded me full of painkiller, and I fell asleep. It was about 1 in the morning. I woke up and I couldn't. I think the best way to put it is, waterboarding. They used to do back, in Guantanamo Bay. They put a towel over somebody's face, I guess. I don't know waterboarding. I obviously have never done it, but they put a towel over their face and they pour water and you feel like you're drowning. And I felt like I was drowning because I could not breathe. And I couldn't speak loudly enough to get anybody's attention. And finally, I thought I was going to die. I really thought, this is it. I'm dying. Right here, right now, I'm going to fucking die. That's where I was. And I finally managed to find on the bed, like beside me, I'm looking around and I find the clicker thing for the call for the nurse, and I press it, and the nurse comes, and the poor little thing was 120 pounds if she was 110 pounds. Like, she was tiny. And I said, you have to get me up. But I couldn't really talk. She couldn't understand me. And I was like, get me up, I can't breathe. And she tried to get me out of bed, and she couldn't get me out of bed. She just couldn't get me up. I was too heavy. And she said, I have to go get somebody. And I was in a rage. Because I felt like I was dying. I really felt like, this is it. You're dying. And I was so goddamn angry. So angry at her. And I couldn't really talk, but I was just absolutely raging. I don't even really remember what I said to her, but I remember I was violently angry. And she grabs another nurse and they pull me up. And once they got me up and I'm on my, on my elbows standing, but leaning on the bed, I could start to breathe again. And, they gave me a shot of Toradol again, and it did nothing and didn't even touch it. And she said, we're going to get the doctor. And she came back and she's standing beside me. And I felt, at this point, I was, my wits were about me a little more. And I said to her, I'm really sorry that I got so mad at you. That wasn't called for. And she said, you really weren't that mad. You didn't say that much. And I was like, no, I feel terrible. I was awfully angry at you. It's not your fault that you're little. Like, it's not your fault that I'm too heavy. Anyway, the doctor came and they said, listen, we're going to have to give you fentanyl again. And I said, I don't like drugs. I don't like taking drugs. I don't like painkillers. That's not shit I'm into. And I said, I don't even care. You give me whatever the hell you give me. Just bring that on. They gave me fentanyl and I slept. And I was in the hospital for, 7 days. 7 full days in the hospital. My wife couldn't come in and see me. The kids couldn't come in and see me because we're in COVID. And they would have to get me up and walk me to the bathroom. And there's not a lot more humbling when you're 47 years old, I guess 46 at the time, and you're physically fit. And I've spent my life working to be physically fit, and I'm an independent guy. I do not like a lot of help. Like, I like to do my own thing. I don't like to ask for help. And having to ask for help just to get out of bed and then you walk to the bathroom, didn't like that. Didn't like that at all. And but slowly over time, it got better. My lung collapsed while I was in the hospital and things like that. But when I left the hospital, I thanked every nurse for a 12-hour period. I knew I was getting out, and I went to the nurse's station and I said thank you to everybody that was there. I talked to every nurse that I interacted with, all the doctors I'd interacted with, and just said, I really appreciate what you guys have done for me. Because in reality, they had saved my life. And I respected so much that they'd been there to help me at a time that I literally could not help myself. I couldn't do anything myself. I was as useless as you could get. When you can't walk, you're pretty useless. To me anyway. For myself, I felt completely useless, and my respect for the nursing profession and doctors, but the nursing profession has always been high. But boy, it was a heck of a lot higher after that. After being in the hospital.